Welcome to part 5, in which we're going to have a look at lens-related problems like converging verticals and vignettes. Let's kick off with vignettes. That's basically when you shoot with a wide angle. The amount of light hitting the sensor at the edge of the frame isn't the same as light hitting from the center, and you get a darker corner to your shot, especially in really wide angle shots. This isn't too bad. It's a little bit darker up here, but we can try and lighten that up using the lens correction tools. And also, when you're shooting a high building from a low angle, the vertical walls tend to converge inwards to a point towards the top of the frame, and that distorts the vertical lines. Now, obviously, this building isn't actually vertical to start with. We've actually got converging lines anyway, but we can still try and get rid of the slight converging effect that we get by looking upwards and try to straighten these lines a little bit. Obviously, not too much, because we do want to keep the building's genuine shape. So what we need to do is open part 5 before, and then I'll show you the lens correction filter you can apply to your own photos. If you're using Photoshop CS, then the filter is indeed called lens correction, but if you're using Elements, it has a different name. Pop up here and choose correct camera distortion. It's such an important filter, it's got its own little section in the filters menu. So click here and up pops a new interface with all the tools you need to overcome common lens distortions, like the fact that we're shooting from the low angle and we're exaggerating the converging verticals at the top of the frame. Okay, let's have a quick tour of the interface. We've got the zoom tool and the hand tool to help us navigate around the image, but to be honest, we want to see the shot as a whole so we can make sure that we tweak the converging verticals and make them less dramatic, and that means we need to see the edge of the frame to do that. You've also got tools like the grid, which allow you to make sure that the lines are running parallel with the edge of the frame anywhere in the window, instead of just using the naked eye to kind of guess. So the grid's quite handy, even if it is a bit distracting at some stage. You can change the color to suit the image as well, if you want to have something a little bit neutral like a grey, or more noticeable like a white. Actually, that white is rather horrible. Let's go back to a more neutral and more subtle grey, like so. Now, some lenses can actually cause straight lines to become curved, and this diagonal line here does have a little bit of a bulge in it. We can compensate for that by using this slider here. If we drag to the left, it bulges even more. If we drag it to the right, it goes the other way, as if it's on a sheet of elastic. So a very subtle value of around about +3 should just take the edge off that slightly curved lens distortion on the building. We can then try and climb up to a higher vantage point and view this shot from about midway, which will stop the lens distortion, causing it to converge dramatically at the top. And to do that, we can tweak the vertical perspective. And you can see there now that the top isn't getting as narrow as it was. Obviously, we still want it to be pointing inwards because that's the shape of the building, but we've taken off a little bit of that lens distortion by dragging this down to about -23. Then when we do that, we create a transparent edge around the bottom of the frame, but we can get rid of that by scaling the shot up using the scale slider here. And if you drag that to the right to around about 110%, we've got rid of the unwanted transparent edges, which will print out as white when you print the shot. But when you increase the scale of a shot, you're blowing it up, you're adding extra pixels, and that can cause it to look a little bit fuzzy. So you might actually want to go back to 100%. And what we'll do is we'll crop the shot at the end to lose this problem area, and that gives us more control without actually artificially enlarging its pixels. Now we also have a little bit of vignetting at the corner, especially at this section here. So what I'm going to do is turn off the grid now, because it's getting in the way of me seeing the tones of the sky. And what I can try and do is lighten the tones at the corners by dragging a mount up a little bit. And if that's too far, of course, you're going to end up with something like this, but it shows you what it's doing. I can take that down a little bit, and then drag the midpoint to push out the change towards the edge of the frame so it doesn't affect the sky, more towards the center. So something like that should probably do the trick. A little bit more. There, that should do. And what I'm going to do is turn preview off so you can see the darker edge to the sky there. Turn preview on again, and you can see we've lightened it up and removed the vignette. I might take that down slightly more just to avoid blowing out this top section here. So that's lens correction for you. Let's click OK to apply those changes. And here you can see we've compensated for the vertical distortion we had from our low angle, and we've also removed that vignetting in the corner. Final thing we need to do is just to crop out these areas here, or they'll print out as pure white. So grab the crop tool. You can change the restriction to the photos ratio so it will match all of the other photographs. Click to select and then draw in like so to lose the edge of the transparency. I'm just going to use the right arrow key just to reposition that very subtly, and then click the tick to apply the change. So that's part 5 finished, and in the final part 6 of our Solving Common Problems lesson, we're going to look at making selective adjustments in raw files using the cool new adjustment brush, which you can find in CS4 or CS5.